The Battle of Procyon V was fought in the 26th century and a pivotal point in the Temporal Cold War. The Sphere Builders, as they were known, were the primary antagonists, while on the other side, the United Federation of Planets and its allied powers that supported the Temporal Accords. That's a lot of jargon, so let's break them down. For a start, Procyon is a lot closer than you may think to the heart of the Federation, and a place you've probably heard of before as a Star Trek fan. It's the Earth designation for the Andorian system. The Temporal Accords were signed by numerous powers that agreed that time travel be relegated to observation only, effectively having any signing power agree to a temporal prime directive. This was in response to numerous other civilizations with access to time travel attempting to alter history for their own benefit, the target of the early Earth Starfleet being one of many instances where this was tried. Temporal agents from as late as the 31st century would continue to monitor and police the timeline to prevent this sort of event, and the Temporal Cold War itself would eventually go live with a shake-up to time, leading to a radically shifting timeline from 1 minute to the next. Eventually, the only way to end it was to simply outlaw all time travel usage, which happened in the 32nd century, just before the burn event that crippled dilithium usage. The Sphere Builders were a faction based in an extra-dimensional realm that were attempting to format our universe's space-time into a compatible region where they could survive. They began their work in an area known as the Delphic Expanse in the early 22nd century by deploying massive machines that altered space around them. Each sphere was 19 kilometers in diameter, and they were complex gravimetric generators. Each was additionally concealed in a cloaking barrier and often protected by their own effects of distorting space-time, creating increasingly hazardous zones the closer you got. The region was an anomaly that, if left unchecked, would eventually cover 50,000 light-years by the 26th century. But what were the motivations of the Sphere Builders? Well, in Star Trek Online, we are privy to their origin, which involves a time travel experiment gone awry. Their entire species was effectively removed from time when a Krenim Federation experiment had some unintended side effects. This put them into a pocket dimension outside of time, where they adapted to survive but longed to return. From their perch outside of space-time, however, they found they could observe into other realities and timelines, and so they made plans. Incidentally, this means that there was a Delphic Expanse in numerous other timelines and realities too, including the Kelvin timeline, but their intervention into that era did not take place until 2258, far later than the Prime timeline. Does this mean that the Prime timeline was forever altered by the events of Star Trek Enterprise, or that we are to accept that these events always happened in the continuity of the shows and we just never saw them until they were retconned in? I think it doesn't matter. There is a long-running theory that Enterprise's events forever altered the Prime timeline moving forwards, meaning that old shows from the Next Generation and original eras are now in their own continuity, and while a fun thought exercise, I always just took it as the events of Enterprise simply are not referred to in TNG because Enterprise was not a show back then. Additionally, Trek lore is replete with time travel stories and alterations, and it has explored both predestination paradoxes, parallel universes, and alterations to the current timeline. It's a confusing and chaotic mess because Trek simply wants to play with and explore multiple concepts. Whether or not this is all canon is irrelevant, and this makes the Battle of Procyon V rather interesting because it seems to be an event that is always destined to happen. The original battle in Star Trek lore occurs between the Sphere Builders, making their push into our realm, and the Federation in opposing them, headed by the flagship, the Enterprise J. However, Star Trek Enterprise collapses the Delphic Expanse in 2153, preventing it from forming. But from Agent Daniels' description, it sounds like the Battle of Procyon V is supposed to occur anyway, just on a smaller scale with a decisive Federation victory. In Star Trek Online's lore, its own continuity now, we learn that the battle still unfolds, but this time it's seen as a linchpin event between forces for the Temporal Accords and those against, with the return of the Sphere Builders being a contributing factor and them allied with those who would oppose the Federation. However, forces that are present are both native to that era and not, such as forces from the timeline of the 29th century and even ships drawn in from the past that were crewed by temporal agents undercover in those eras. This is why we supposedly see things like the Nova and Prometheus class there. They were agents called into action from their previous assignments. Now, the existence of temporal agents are canon, as we learn in Discovery, and they are often recruited from individuals who have been displaced in time or realities, such as Yor, who was operating in the main continuity of the 24th century from the alternate Kelvin timeline. Daniels makes reference to this Battle of Procyon V being fought numerous times, too. It sounds like for whatever reason this front in the Temporal War is always revisited, always changing, and a key event in time. If this were Doctor Who, I would describe it as a fixed point, a period of time that had to remain unchanged or close enough to avoid the collapse of timelines. But as it is Trek, I can simply speculate that this is effectively the climactic confrontation of hostilities, and whenever you involve time travel as a weapon, then of course the nature of a battle is going to change, as new forces are brought in, others never existed, and the very battle lines are constantly redrawn. Honestly, the Battle of Procyon V sounds like a nightmare to endure, and temporally shielded vessels that are unaltered by changes in the timeline would have to witness numerous outcomes and versions of this fight, as would the Sphere Builders from outside of space-time. The real victory of the battle seems to simply be to limit its scale and keep it to a point in time where the Builders tried to invade and failed. Doing so keeps it as this important part it is, and validates the importance of the Temporal Accords, and stops the theatre of war, the Delphic Expanse, from growing to dangerous levels. I find the Battle of Procyon V so interesting because it means almost any version of it you read about could have been canon at one point or another, with the events of the Temporal Cold War, either side of it shifting the outcome, and even the belligerents around the time. Any law introduced is not protected from alterations to history, with even included elements of the future getting involved. What we can say for certain is that it ended the Sphere Builders' designs on returning or entering our universe, and as long as that outcome is secured, the rest can remain in flux. Thanks for watching this look into the chaotic corner of Star Trek lore. I've been Rick, and I'll see you before and again. Hello, Rick here, and goodbye.